In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your control arm with ball joint on your Mercedes-Benz C300. It's located behind the front wheel. Using a 17mm socket, we're going to remove our wheel. For this last one, you want to keep a hand on the wheel. And remove it. You're going to need a caliper hanger or something to hold your caliper up. We're going to take out these 2 bolts with an 18mm socket. And then from there, we're going to take our axle nut off. I'm going to do the lower one first. Set that bolt aside. When you do the top one, you want to have a good hand on the caliper so it doesn't fall. Remove your caliper. And we're going to hang it up over here. Just get it out of the way. Make sure you don't kink your hose. Now we're going to use an E24 inverted torque spit socket, and we're going to remove this axle bolt. From here, we're going to take out the ABS sensor out of the knuckle. I'm going to use a 10mm socket, and we're going to take out this ABS sensor. After you remove the bolt, you should be able to pull that out and set it aside. I'm going to use an E18 inverted socket on the head of the bolt for my 2 strut bolts, and a 21mm socket with an extension for the strut bolts. We're going to remove those bolts. Make sure you hold on to the other end so it doesn't spin. Remove your nut. Now we're going to do the top one. Remove the nut. Push in on the top part of your knuckle. You might have to wiggle it a little bit to get these bolts out. Keep holding pressure, and then when you let it go, you want to see if that CV axle is moving. If it isn't, you're going to want to put a punch in there just to hold it in place while you give it a tap or 2 with the axle bolt back in. So I'm just holding this here so it doesn't fall out. And now we're going to put our axle bolt back in, just a little bit, couple of threads, and give it a tap with a hammer to free up the axle from the knuckle or the hub. It looks like it's moving. Make sure it's completely free before you let go of the knuckle. Now we're going to pull this out the rest of the way. I have the wheel turned to the right, and we're just going to pull this axle out. You may have to push in and pull down on your knuckle at the same time. Make sure that you support your knuckle. I'm using a ratchet strap up there so that when you disconnect the control arm, the knuckle doesn't fall down. We're going to take our control arm out of the knuckle. We're going to use a 21mm socket and remove the nut. Now we're going to give this a tap. I have my nut back on. Looks like it's free. We're going to take our nut off the rest of the way. And now we can remove this. You may have to move your knuckle around a little bit, but that looks like it's ready to go. Now we're going to focus on the other side of the control arm and remove a few bolts on our engine splash shield so that we can get to the head of the bolt going through the control arm on the other side. We're going to remove about 3 bolts for this splash shield. I'm going to start here. I'm using an 8mm socket to remove these, but these are aftermarket, so yours might be a 10. And I'm going to remove this one back here too. You basically just want to get yourself some access to the head of this bolt right here for the control arm. We're going to put a 21mm short socket with a breaker bar on this end to hold that nut still. And we're going to use an E20 inverted Torx socket on this side. And we're going to take out this bolt. Let's remove our bolt. Now we're going to remove our control arm out of the frame. You might need a pry bar to do that. And take it out. Let's put our control arm in. I'm going to go above the tie rod, aim for that knuckle, and place it in there. You might have to move the stud around a little bit to make it line up with the other end. But once you're lined up, you're going to give it a tap. And get the holes lined up. There's enough tension there to hold it in. You can grab your bolt. That'll hold it there. Now you're gonna come on towards the front and feed your bolt through. Okay, if it's not lining up, you're going to use your pry bar and just push that control arm forward or backwards or wherever you need it to go. And that bolt should go through once you're lined up correctly. It took a little bit to get it out, so it's going to take a little bit to put it in. Once you're lined up, you can push it through. Like that. And now we can put our washer on and then our nut. Make sure that your other end is in the knuckle, and if it is, you can go ahead and snug this up. We're not going to torque till the end when we're at ride height. So just bottom it out. And now we're going to put our nut on where the ball joint is. Let's put our nut back on and snug it up. We're not going to torque this until we're at ride height. So we're just going to snug it up for now. Now we're going to put our axle in. I'm going to undo our bungee here. And we're going to steer it in. You may have to pull out on your knuckle in order to get it in. Once you get it past the hub, you're going to aim it into the sprocket and make sure it's all lined up. If you're having a hard time getting it to go in the sprocket part, you can turn your wheel a little bit and line it up a little better. And then you can push it in. Now we're going to put our knuckle back into the strut. I have a punch ready, and I have a piece of wood that's holding my strut out so that when I push in, I don't have a floppy situation going on. So I'm going to turn it in and push it. It should slide in. You may have to give it a tap. Now put your punch in. Now we're going to get our strut bolts in. You may have to move your knuckle in and out in order to line everything up. There's one. Put the nut on. Now let's take our punch out and put the upper bolt in. Put the nut on. We're going to tighten these up and then we're going to torque them. Now we're going to tighten up these strut bolts. And I'm holding the head of the bolt still while I tighten the nut up. All right, now we're going to torque them. We're going to torque this to 89 foot-pounds, and then we're going to go another 90 degrees or a quarter of a turn. So there's the 89 foot-pounds, and now we're going to go a quarter of a turn. Let's do the same on the bottom. That's 89 foot-pounds, and now we're going to go a quarter of a turn. I'm going to remove my wood from behind the strut at this point. We don't need it anymore. We're going to put our axle bolt in, and we're going to just snug it up till it hits, and then we're going to torque it on the ground later. Now let's put our caliper on and our ABS sensor back in the hub. Let's put our ABS sensor in the hub, insert it in, and get your bolt started. Let's tighten that up about wrist tight. Don't over tighten it. Now let's put our caliper on. Let's put our caliper on. I'm going to take it off my hanger. And slide it over the rotor. Get one bolt started. Now I'm going to get my bottom one started as well. I'm going to turn the wheel out so I can tighten those down. Snug these up and torque them to 84 foot-pounds. Let's torque this to 84 foot-pounds. Now that we snug that nut up, we are going to torque it to 37 foot-pounds, and then go 1/8 of a turn more. So there's my 37, and I'm going to go 1/8 of a turn. So now you're going to support your knuckle and push it up at ride height. I'm using a pull jack to do that with a piece of wood. And we're going to torque this to 89 foot-pounds, and then go another 180 degrees, which is 1/2 a turn. So that's 89, and now I'm going to go a little tighter. Till I get to about 1/2 a turn more. You can mark your nut if you want to see the 1/2 a turn, or you could just try to keep track. And that's good for us. I also have a ratchet with the socket on the head of the bolt in case it decided to move. Ours didn't, so we're going to lower this down now. Get the pull jack out of here. We're going to put our splat shield back on. Line up your bolts. I'm going to tighten these up so I can get that last one in. Put your bolt in, line it up, and tighten it up. We're going to be torquing our axle bolt at this point, so 115 foot-pounds at first, and then we're going to loosen it, and then we're going to torque it again to 88 foot-pounds, and then go 90 degrees, which is 1/4 of a turn afterwards. So let's start with 115 foot-pounds. I have my pry bar with 2 bolts in the axle to hold it still, and we're going to torque that to 115 foot-pounds. Once you get it there, you're going to loosen it up. Let's see if we can catch it like that. Let's flip this over. Reposition your pry bar. Now let's torque this to 88 foot-pounds. I've repositioned my pry bar. And now from here, we're going to go 90 degrees or 1/4 of a turn. So I'm going to start up here. Just keep track of your turn. That feels good to me. Now we can take out our pry bar and remove our lug nut bolts. When you put your wheel back on, you want to make sure that your lug nuts, studs are going to line up. Once they're lined up, you're going to get one started. You are going to need your socket to do that. Now you can let go and do the rest. Now we're going to snug them up. We're going to do that in a star-like pattern using a 17mm socket. Make sure you do not over-tighten. We're going to torque our wheel to 96 foot-pounds. We're going to do that in a star-like pattern. Anytime you do any sort of suspension work, you're going to want to get an alignment, so go down to your local shop and get that done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.